Welcome to the Cult of Domesticity podcast, where two best friends, aka us, tell each other stories about history, politics, and true crime 725 miles apart. I'm Courtney.
And I'm Ashley.
And today we're going to finish our discussion on Puerto Rico. But first, update on Buddy the cat. He is wearing a cone. He hates it. Like a lot. Like by a lot, I mean he tried to escape out of the laundry basket when I was driving him home from the vet. Don't judge us. We don't have a cat carrier. My cat's too fat. Socks is really fat. And then I put him in the back in the bathroom, and he just like tried to reject everything. And sometimes I come in there and he's just sitting. He looks like the most miserable cat.
Poor Buddy.
He did meet our cats.
How'd that go?
As well as you would expect. My cats hate other creatures, except for the rabbit a little bit. Feistiest albino rabbit you'll ever meet.
And we love him.
You see, I get our pets famous via Snapchat because they're the only ones home. But yeah. And then, Ashley, did you see this is a thing now? Glitter lattes?
No, what? How did I miss that?
Yes.
That is right up my alley, dude. Are you for real?
Yes.
And I didn't know about it.
I purposely did not tell you and share anything on Facebook because I had to wait to tell you to this moment. Because my question is, do you shit glitter after this?
Well, I will try one and let you know. I would assume not.
I don't want to know.
If it's edible, probably not.
Does it taste different?
If it's edible glitter, maybe not. I don't know. I'm gonna have to try one. Where do they make them? Tell me.
I don't remember. I was just very disgusted by it.
I'm gonna try one now. Maybe not this week, maybe not next week, but one day, and it will be soon.
Also, I sent this to you. What did you think of Jeff Goldblum discussing tattoos of him on people?
So, full disclosure, I saw that you sent that, but I didn't click on it. So let me go do that now. Sorry.
Oh my god.
This looks fun. But then I never did anything about it. Because I'm an awful friend.
Mind you, we do send each other like 20 billion links a week.
Yeah.
Well, Ashley is becoming a better friend.
I'm such a dick.
I would like to thank all our new listeners.
Well, thank you.
From place. Yeah, some people we don't even know are listening now.
So that's exciting.
Yeah. So Ashley, now that you have seen some of it,
sorry, I'm a bad friend.
What do you think? You're gonna go watch it afterwards, aren't you? It just makes you happy.
I am. That was funny though. I love him.
Oh my god, he is fantastic.
That's a national treasure.
Okay. Oh, he's such a national treasure. Now that we've thoroughly distracted ourselves with...
Let's get our shit back together for a minute. So Puerto Rico, part 2. Hit me with it.
So we ended with the U.S. involvement in Puerto Rico, the Spanish-American War, which, tell you the truth, wasn't even originally about Puerto Rico. Did you know that?
Maybe. I think... I mean, realistically, most of my social studies classes reset after the Civil War, so we got through like Reconstruction, and then it was the end of the school year, and then we would start up again with the Constitutional Convention and all that stuff. So, you know,
oh my god,
it's all gonna be news. Buckle up.
So yeah, the reason why the Spanish-American War happened wasn't because of Puerto Rico, it was because of lovely Cuba. And because Spain was a declining empire at the time, and Cuba was it's 90 miles from the US, it's so close, it's key, and the US is on this big imperialism kick, of the 19th century, which is always fun imperialism. Again, if you have not watched, I'm gonna forget the comedian's name.
Eddie Izzard,
yes. Watch his bit about maps and flags and European imperialism. Oh my god, it's great. It's fantastic. I highly suggest it. It's very good rationale of European imperialism. Okay, but the reason why Puerto Rico in this little I'm gonna call it a tiff because it's not long enough to be a war. It was 4 months. Was because the island had another market for the U.S., so they could put their manufactured goods out there, and it's a really good place for naval position. So basically, Puerto Rico, it's another market for U.S. goods, and put a Navy base on it, put a flag on it, claim that shit.
Guantanamo.
Well, fun fact about Guantanamo Bay, Fidel actually cashed the first check that the U.S. sent him, so therefore he fucked himself over.
Yeah,
but, broke-ass country, what you gonna do?
Gotta cash that check, dude. Do you?
The rest of them apparently are just in somewhere in the capital. Okay, so U.S. Navy Captain Alfred T. Mahanahan, dude, I'm going with it, Mahanahan, was the chief strategist and advisor to the U.S. government. He's like a complete U.S. Navy guy, and he basically sets up the U.S. strategic doctrine for naval power to become a military superpower. And so basically the U.S. is going to become the top naval power, replacing the British, in order to assert their dominance like we like to do. And if people tell you America had an isolationist policy until World War II, bullshit. 110% bullshit. So Manahan was the gent who advised President McKinley, aka Ohio president, what?
Like 5, right? 5, 4, I don't know, a lot. Anyway.
We have the most, if you go off of birth location. We're tied with Virginia. Fun fact.
I like that you know that off the top of your head. Nerd.
I think we also have the most assassinated presidents, so it's not great.
Definitely the most astronauts. Everyone wants to get the fuck out of Ohio.
I don't know what you mean. Why would we want to get the fuck out of Ohio? Oh, wait. Our river caught on fire.
Multiple times.
Multiple times, yes. It's another time. Okay. So in 1894, the first plans to have a military conflict with Spain, España, were formulated in the U.S. Naval War College. And basically, the plan was to liberate Cuba. I'm going to tell you, the U.S. just likes to rehash ideas and say they're new, but they're not.
We're liberating countries that don't need to be liberated at all.
Yes.
That seems like a pattern.
Yes. What is it? The sanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. We're very good at it. So the main theater of war would be in the Caribbean. So you have Cuba and Puerto Rico, the more financially profitable colonies. And then the U.S. plan would be to take out the Spanish Navy. All of a sudden, because shit happens, the mysterious explosion of the main battleship in the Havana Harbor, February 15th, 1898. Sorry, I have number dyslexia, not word dyslexia, just number dyslexia.
Dyscalculia.
Is that actually a thing?
It's a thing. Yeah, it's a thing.
So, February 15th, 1898 was when the USS Maine blew up in the Havana Harbor. It was sent there to encourage the Spanish to liberate Cuba, aka leave.
The ship that was sent there as a warning got sent to shit.
Yeah, it was blown up. They've actually determined that it was probably an accident.
Excellent.
Yeah, that the coal fuel got too hot and it just exploded. But it killed about 300 U.S. Marines, and it gave the U.S. a reason to go to war.
300 Marines, that's a fair reason. All right.
And they blamed it on the Spanish. So this is where you hear, remember the Maine. It's not as catchy as Remember the Alamo.
The hipster version.
What?
I said it's the hipster version instead of Remember the Alamo. It's Remember the Maine because it's more obscure.
I remembered the Maine instead of remembering the Alamo. Thank you.
I was remembering the Maine when remembering the Alamo was cool.
Okay.
God, I want to kick myself in the face.
So, April 21st, McKinley formally requests that the U.S. declare war against Spain. And, I mean...
Remember when presidents followed constitutional procedure for that shit?
We haven't followed constitutional procedure for war shit since World War II, but that's a long tangent that we don't need to get on. So even though the U.S. had some fuck-ups, tactical and logistical, the military superiority over the Spanish was so clear. That's why it lasted 4 months. Basically, the Spanish hadn't been keeping up to date. They were in debt. They had problems. Like we said, Napoleon took over Spain. Those kind of problems. And on May 1st, the U.S. forces defeated the Spanish in Manila Bay for the Philippines because the Philippines originally were a Spanish colony and weakened Spain significantly. The U.S. went and got ground troops into then the Philippines and Cuba, and they realized they could take a lot more Spanish colonies. The U.S. landed in Cuba late June, and by July 17th, they had decimated the Spanish fleet in Santiago de Cuba Bay and basically had control over all waterways in the Caribbean, which is pretty significant if you know your colonial history because Spain had that shit locked down. So you think we have the Philippines and we have Cuba. We don't need anything else. Because this is about Puerto Rico. And McKinley basically switched from Cuba to Puerto Rico and pretty much demanded it from the Spanish without compensation. So he's like, bitch, we're gonna put a flag in that, and that's mine.
He's like, we won, it's ours now, bye.
Okay, bye out of the Western Hemisphere. See you later. Declining imperial power.
Empire? What empire? That's cute.
It's really... It wasn't even necessary. Like, they knew the Spanish were going to wave the little white flag.
It's pure American vindictiveness is what it is. But,
like the Mexican-American War. But that's another story. Another time.
Yeah.
Okay. But let's get to Puerto Rico. How did the U.S. get there? We're going to have a lot of fun names that I'm probably going to fuck up because I want to.
I look forward to it.
On July 8th. And remind you, we're still 1898. This is not taking very long. But July 18th, General Nelson A. Miles, because he went for miles and miles, commanded the U.S. forces invading Puerto Rico, and he gets those orders. They had about 18,000 troops with a naval escort from Guantanamo Bay and the east coast of the U.S. So, they're just getting a bunch of troops together. 21st of July, a convoy of 3,300 soldiers and 9 transports head from Cuba. Then, on July 25th, U.S. troops under General Miles disembark on Guanica, which is on the southern coast of Puerto Rico. July 26th, Brigadier General George Garrison and Guy, his middle initial is V, and I wanted to say 5, sorry, but George 5 Henry arrived at Guanica and gained control of the key railroad lines connecting with Ponce, the largest city on the island. If you say toast again, I'm gonna murder you.
No, I'm laughing at the George 5.
Guy
or
5
whatever
Henry.
His name was, 5.
Guy V. Henry. I'm going with 5.
I love it. Because I went to Catholic school, so that would have been my first thought too, is 5. Like, it's a Roman numeral, it's fine.
Then General Miles and Miles' troops arrived in Ponce, and he remained in the city until early August and basically turned ruler over civil and military affairs on the island. So, military dictatorship. Woo woo!
Excellent.
And then the French go, "Hey, McKinley, we're here from the Spanish. Can you stop? Stop with the fighting. Please stop."
And he was probably like, no. And then he told them that their mother was a hamster and their father smelled like elderberries.
So, actually, this is getting closer to the end of hostilities. Remember, it's a 4-month war. It doesn't take long. Meanwhile, July 27th, Major General James H. Wilson's division arrives in Ponce. The 28th, Miles and Miles issued a proclamation that the U.S. reason for being there was a banner of freedom.
Seriously, nothing changes.
So
it's the same.
So they're bringing Puerto Rico freedom, which, if you remember from the last episode, Puerto Rico was kind of already on its way to being more independent. They were on the edge of it. Well, Duque de Almodovar del Rio called for the U.S. annexation of Cuba, and then they had to immediately recall troops from certain regions back to the United States because there was an outbreak of yellow fever. So,
nice.
I enjoy the little ironies like that. It just seems appropriate. So, the 31st of July, mind you, they landed basically the 21st. So, it's 10 days. 10 days later, another supply of troops led by Major General Theodore Chochuan landed in Guanica and moved west, while Major General Broke disembarked in Arroyo. Beginning of August, you have Broke troops moving through the countryside, seizing towns, and the U.S. forces are coalescing. They're meeting up, taking over different areas of Puerto Rico. But there's still resistance from Spanish troops that are hiding in the mountains. Remember, this is a mountainous island. It's not completely flat. However, August 11th, General Chochuan's troops occupied the city of Mayes, and the U.S. Secretary of State Day and the French ambassador Cabon, who represented Spain, negotiated protocols of peace. So they're working to end the war. And then the next day, McKinley and the French ambassador, again, Cabon, signed an armistice where Spain relinquished its sovereignty over Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines. So if you ever wondered if the U.S. was an empire, yeah. Well, my favorite thing that I read was the fate of these countries would be decided during the peace talks. They didn't have a choice.
I mean, that's like when the British drew the borders in Africa and they were like, it'll be fine. We don't need to consult them. Nothing to worry about here. And then just chaos.
So much chaos. So, the shenanigans. They begin to halt attacks in Puerto Rico after they receive the message of the armistice. Then the September 9th, we're almost about a month and a half in to being in Puerto Rico. The U.S. and Spanish commissions met in San Juan to discuss the details of the withdrawal of Spanish troops and the cession of the island to the United States. The 13th, the Spanish Cortes, aka their Congress, ratified the Protocols of Peace. However, before they could reach San Juan, Spain had agreed August 13th to sign the peace treaty with the United States, putting an end to all hostilities. I just love that, you don't realize it now, but the fact that we have instant communication makes it really easy to end conflicts faster. So you don't have to wait for the news. It was finally ratified December 10th, 1889. It's finally ratified December 10th, 1889 with the Treaty of Paris. If you want to really, really freak yourself out a little bit, Google how many treaties of Paris there are.
There's so many.
Or treaties of Versailles. There's so many.
It's because it's just a lovely place to sign over your country's well-being to the victor of your war.
I mean, obviously.
That Hall of Mirrors, man, you get a real good view of yourself just bending over. Anyway.
Oh my god, that's beautiful. So, So the formal transfer of Puerto Rico took 2 months. So from August to October. And that's when all the Spanish troops were gone and the U.S. flag was raised in the most public buildings on the island. Because remember, they had started getting some nice rights. You want to guess what kind of government they got?
I don't know. Democracy, maybe, if they're lucky.
They got a military government! Yay!
Oh, that's not good.
Also, I think this is one of the best deals the U.S. got besides the Louisiana Purchase. What did the U.S. get for the Treaty of Paris and to stop fighting the Spanish? I'm glad you asked. They took control over all former Spanish military installations, as well as 120,000 acres of formerly owned Spanish crown land on the islands. So, main military posts were in several cities on the island, including the adjacent island of Vieques. So, yay! And this is on top of them getting, the Philippines and Cuba, which Cuba got a shit deal. But Puerto Rico was under direct U.S. control until Congress ratified the 4-acre law April 12th, 1900, bringing a civilian government to the island.
Question, what's the 4-acre law?
The 4-acre law is a U.S. federal law that established a limited civilian government on the island of Puerto Rico. It also establishes Puerto Rican citizenship. Oh, and guess what? It was known as the 4-Acre Act after its sponsor, Ohio Senator Joseph B. 4-Acre.
Oh, okay. Yes. That's what I was mostly wondering, was where the name came from. And of course, it's a dude from Ohio. It's always Ohio.
Do we just like to fuck shit up?
We're involved in everything. It's fine.
Yes, because we're in the middle. Okay, so what was life like under U.S. rule? Also, fun fact, it is really hard to find shit about Puerto Rico after the Spanish-American War. So, academics work on it.
Let's focus a little less on the Salem witch trials, and a couple of you work on
every academic conference I went to, someone talked about witches. Legitimately, they are fascinating, but still. Okay. Puerto Rico and the U.S. have a metropole colony relationship. What that basically means is the metropole is the center where all the decisions are made, and they tend to pull goods and resources from the colony, and they only normally send back finished products. So I'm sure a lot of people know their U.S. history. Think of the U.S. would send out cotton, timber, sugar, and they would get back like furniture, finished cloth, nice luxury goods. So before the 4-Acre Act, it was a military-ruled country, which always goes great. But then the 4-Acre Act gave a limited civilian government, and that meant they could have a elected House of Representatives, as well as an upper house and a governor. But the upper house and the governor could be appointed by the U.S. So basically, So basically, the judicial system then was following the U.S. system, where there was a Puerto Rican Supreme Court, U.S. District Court in the territory as well. It also gave Puerto Rico a non-voting member for Congress. And Ashley, you want to guess what they gave that person's title? Guess something, anything.
No, I'm not going to guess because it's going to sound real dumb. You're going to say it and I'm going to know it.
Okay. It was the title of resident commissioner, who was also appointed.
Yep.
Yeah.
See?
It's the fact that all of these are, like, you have one popular, like, house. So the house is popular vote, and then your upper court, your upper house, and the governor appointed. and you're one person and non-voting. Come on. How cheap is that?
I mean, it's the same thing that DC deals with now.
Yeah. All U.S. laws are not locally inapplicable to Puerto Rico. The exemption from U.S. Internal revenue laws.
So taxation.
Yes.
So they have some limited representation, and taxation is limited as well. Or is just completely
based on
not
their
a factor
local
for them.
limited government. So, yes.
Okay. So limited then.
Yeah.
Okay. That seems fair-ish.
The civil government can legislate on all matters of legislative characters not locally inapplicable, which means power to modify, repeal any laws already in existence in Puerto Rico, but the U.S. Congress retained the power to annul acts of the Puerto Rican legislature.
Fuck, man, really?
Come
on.
Who doesn't?
All right. I mean, I couldn't expect any less, really, but come on.
However, addressing the Puerto Rican legislature in 1906, President Teddy Roosevelt recommended that Puerto Ricans become U.S. citizens. So he's trying to give them equal rights under the law. TR did a lot of good things, a lot of bad things.
Fought in the Spanish-American War.
He also, oh God, I'll have to do an episode on him, listeners. I would say if you really would love an episode on Teddy Roosevelt, make sure to tweet it, Facebook it, whatever your social media method of choice is to us.
Do it.
Hashtag tell us about TR. So in 1914, aka year of World War I, the Puerto Rican House of Delegates voted unanimously in favor of independence from the United States, but was rejected by the U.S. Congress as unconstitutional and as a violation of the Foraker Act. So they're still trying. 1917, the Congress passed the Jones-Shafroth Act, popularly called the Jones Act. I wonder why. Which granted Puerto Ricans born before, after April 25th, 1898 U.S. citizens. So they have citizenship, in case you were wondering.
They sure do.
Opponents who voted against it, which was pretty much all of the Puerto Rican House of Delegates, said that the U.S. imposed citizenship in order to draft Puerto Rican men into the U.S. Army as American entry in the First World War became more certain. So,
I mean, they're probably not wrong.
Oh, I probably could guarantee that they're not wrong.
It sounds like some shady shit we'd do.
It does sound so like such a U.S. shady thing. Okay. Actually, you know what? It sounds like a British thing to do.
Well, we did learn from the best.
Oh, we did. Okay. So, same act, the Jones Act, also provided for a popularly elected Senate to complete the bicameral legislative assembly, as well as a Bill of Rights. So some good things. The U.S. is relinquishing control very slowly, as well as authorizing popular election of the resident commissioner to a 4-year term. So it's no longer appointed. This will seem really, I don't know why it seems really, really pertinent now. So then natural disasters, including a major earthquake and a tsunami in 1918, several hurricanes, and the Great Depression severely impoverished the island during those first few decades under U.S. rule. And some of the political leaders, including Pedro Albizu Campos, who led the Puerto Rican Nationalist Party, had demanded change in relations with the U.S. during this period as well. He protested at the University of Puerto Rico in 1935, where 4 were killed by police. So we see the Puerto Ricans are still fighting for their independence, just like they did before the U.S. had control. In 36, a U.S. Senator, Millard, I'm going to call it Tidings, but it's spelled weird. It's spelled so weird, introduced a bill supporting independence for Puerto Rico, but it was imposed by Luis Mundos Mari of the Marin of the Liberal Party of Puerto Rico. So he had also, Tidings, just so you know, had also co-sponsored the Tidings-Duffy Act, which had provided independence to the Philippines after a 10-year transition with limited autonomy. So he had already worked out how to get other countries their independence after the Spanish-American War. Basically, enjoy this. All the Puerto Rican parties supported this bill. So the bill by Millard Tidings, except for Mundos Marin, and it did not pass. And we see again in 1937, Campos's party organized more protests where people were killed by police in Ponce. And the Insular Police, aka their National Guard, had opened fire upon unarmed cadets and bystanders. So it's not a peaceful rule over Puerto Rico by any means. So this attack on unarmed protesters was reported to a U.S. Congressman, Vito Marcanoni, and actually was confirmed by the Hayes Commission. And the Hayes Commission was led by Arthur Garfield Hayes, who counseled the American Civil Liberties Union. So that protest had 19 people killed and 200 badly wounded who were shot as they ran away, which is really, really sad. So the Hayes Commission actually declared that it was a massacre and police mob action, and it became known as the Ponce Massacre. April 2nd, 1943, Tidings, again, introduced a bill calling for independence for Puerto Rico, but it was ultimately defeated. So this Tidings guy isn't horrible. He's trying to get these areas to gain their independence, but for Puerto Rico, it's not working very well.
Okay.
So during the Roosevelt-Truman administrations, there was a compromise with the island leadership, with Luis Mundos Marin and other Puerto Rican leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And actually in 1946, Truman appointed the first Puerto Rican-born governor, Jesus T. Pinheiro. So we're seeing some change at the end of the 1940s.
It's kind of sad that it took that long for them to have a Puerto Rican born.
About 50 years.
Yeah. And before that even.
Yeah.
But
so.
Wow.
Yeah. It's really, really shocking.
Yeah.
In 1947, Puerto Ricans gained the right to elect their own governor. And in 1948, Luis Munoz Marin, remember the one person who objected to Tidings' independence bill, became the first popularly elected governor of Puerto Rico.
I wonder if there's a connection there.
Okay, so then a bill was introduced to the Puerto Rican Senate, which would restrain the rights of the independence and nationalist movements on the island. And the Senate was controlled by the Popular Democratic Party, PPD, and was presided over by, can you guess who?
Was it the guy who opposed the bill?
Yes, Luis Mundos Marin.
Yep. I knew it was a double M name. I couldn't. Yeah.
Eminem.
Yep.
The bill, which is known as the Gag Law or Ley de la Moresa, was approved by the legislature May 21st, 1948. And this is, I'm sorry, it gets worse.
Of course
it made it. I only bring you happy stories. It made it illegal to display the Puerto Rican flag, to sing a pro-independence tune, to talk of independence, or to campaign on independence.
Excellent. Loving that First Amendment.
Yes. This then was made into law June 10th of that year. And it says, and this is a quote from the law, in accordance with this law, it would be a crime to print, publish, sell, exhibit, organize, or help anyone organize a society, group, or assembly of people whose intentions are to paralyze or destroy the insular government. Anyone accused and found guilty of disobeying the law could be sentenced to 10 years in prison or be fined $10,000 or both.
Yikes. It's a steep penalty.
Yeah, especially if you consider...
I mean, that's steep today, let alone what the dollar was worth back then.
Oh, yeah. Especially, think about it. I said Puerto Rico was already in financial difficulties at that point.
Right. So it's not like they just have 10,000 hanging out, lying around to do with what they will.
I wish I had 10,000 to hang around with.
That would be nice.
But there was fight back. Dr. Leopold Figueroa, a member of the Puerto Rican House of Representatives, said that the law was repressive and in violations of the First Amendment, the U.S. Constitution, which guarantees freedom of speech.
He is correct.
And he also said it was a violation of the civil rights of the people of Puerto Rico.
Also correct.
The law was repealed in 1957. So it almost made it a decade.
Wow.
Yes.
All right.
Feeling really good right now. In 1950, Congress granted Puerto Ricans the right to organize a constitutional convention via referendum that gave them the option of vote their preference, yes or no, on a proposed law that would organize Puerto Rico as a commonwealth, which would continue having U.S. sovereignty over Puerto Rico and its people. The electorate expressed its support for the measure in 1951, and it was formally adopted July 3rd, 1952. On February 4th, 1952, the convention approved Resolution 22, which chose in English the word Commonwealth, which is a politically organized community simultaneously connected by a compact or treaty to another political system. Then again in 1967, the Puerto Rican Legislative Assembly polled the political preference of the Puerto Rican electorate by passing a plebiscite act that that provided for a vote on the status of Puerto Rico. Basically, they gave the citizens 3 options: Commonwealth, statehood, independence. What do you think what was the result, Ashley, in 1967?
I'm betting it was independence, and I'm betting it didn't go over well.
Actually, in most of the time, Commonwealth wins.
Interesting. Okay.
So, Commonwealth wins, but there is no actual formal commitment by the U.S. to honor the results.
So basically we're saying you can have your little election, but if we don't like the result, we're not going to acknowledge it as legally binding in any way. Sounds about right.
Yeah. Oh, I do like the none of the above option, which was the popular Democrat. So the Democratic Party sponsored choice won in 1988 with 50.3% of the vote.
Was none of the above.
Yeah. I wish we could vote for none of the above in elections sometimes, and then they would have to you'd have a 6-month election where different people, the same people couldn't run. So we're gonna have some fun now. October 30th, 1950, Pedro Abuso Campos and other nationalists led a 3-day revolt against the United States in various cities and towns of Puerto Rico. And it is known as the Puerto Rican Nationalist Party revolts of the 1950s. One of the more notable, we'll just pick a couple of the notable cities that participated in the revolts. The Jayua revolt, known as the Jayua Uprising, actually had the governor declare martial law and attacked the insurgents with infantry, artillery, and bombers, whereas the Utayo Uprising is now known as the Utayo Massacre. So you can guess how that went. As well, November 1st, 1950, some Puerto Rican nationalists from New York City, Priscilo Torresola and Oscar Cozado, attempted to assassinate President Harry S. Truman at his temporary residence of Blair House, which I didn't know Truman had assassination attempts against him, so that was new for me. Torresola was killed during the attack, and Cosado was wounded and captured. He was convicted of murder and sentenced to death. Truman actually commuted his sentence to life. And after 29 years, President Jimmy Carter commuted his sentence to time served, and he was released in 1975. So the final Constitution of Puerto Rico was approved by a constitutional convention February 6, 1952, and 82% of the voters approved it in a March referendum. So it was approved by Truman on July 3rd of that year and was proclaimed by Governor Munoz Marin July 25th, 1952. And this is the anniversary of the U.S. landing in troops in Puerto Rico during the Spanish-American War, which until then was celebrated as until that point was celebrated as an annual Puerto Rican holiday.
All right.
We see in the 50s and 60s, there's rapid industrialization, and it's mainly from Operación Manos a la Obra, aka Operation Bootstrapped, and it was an offshoot of the New Deal, and it was to create Puerto Rico into a manufacturing-based economy instead of agriculture-based.
Okay.
And it made Puerto Rico a tourist destination as well as a global center for pharmaceutical manufacturing. However, like the problems that like were already initiated with the U.S. control of them appointing people, that's kind of why Puerto Rico has these problems. You see like a select group of people getting power, and then the shift from agriculture to manufacturing pushed a lot of people, like local farmers and the smaller economy, and actually ended up hurting a lot. And on top of the just traditional land use problem of former Spanish colonies.
Right.
But that brings us up to a more modern day Puerto Rico, where you see the problems kind of just continue to spiral out of this continuing fight for independence by some, pride in their country, but they don't want to leave the US because there could be problems with that financially, and all of this kind of really is now coming to head because we have Hurricane Maria, which devastated the island, and they already didn't have the money to maintain what they had.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you for listening to Cult of Domesticity. We are available on iTunes, Google Play, Chorus, Podbean, SoundCloud, other sources. If we are not on your preferred listening method, let us know so we can fix that. And remember to rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes because it really is the best way to gain traction.
Check us out on Facebook and Twitter at Domestic Podcast to get the episode tip, recipe of the week, and additional information about the week's topics. If you'd like to suggest a recipe or topic, email us at domesticpodcast@gmail.com.
Long distance high five.
Long distance high five. That was well done.